Kansas City Chiefs select Travis Kelce.
Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State.
Patrick Mahomes, his second. Quarterback.
Hey, this is Brett Veach from the Kansas City Chiefs. How you doing?
Mecole Hardman. Juan Thornhill.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I'm ready to work, Coach. You know that.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready now.
The Kansas City Chiefs are now on the clock.
It is the Chiefs' Kingdom, one of their favorite nights of the year. It's the time for the Chiefs to pick in the National Football League draft. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with Chiefs reporter Matt McMullen. We're in the gorgeous practice facility here at One Arrowhead Drive. Brand new turf on this field. Makes me want to run some 40s. I'd get one in, I think. But anyway, we know that there have been times in history this has been jam-packed on a draft night. Our draft watch party is brought to you by the incredible folks at GEHA. So we want to get right into it now. Let's just quickly review. We're going to hear from, we've got a great show set up for you in just a few moments. We're going to hear from the chairman and CEO of the Kansas City Chiefs, Clark Hunt. We will also hear from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll hear from Mecole Hardman. Head coach Andy Reid will talk to us just minutes before we open up the draft room and start the second round. All right, let's get to this, Matt. Let's just quickly review what happened in round one. And let's say what didn't happen, because the news around the NFL yesterday that could have affected the Chiefs was the fact that Aaron Rodgers was putting out there he wanted to be traded by the Packers and listed the Raiders and Broncos as two of the teams he wanted to go to.
That was a wild hour, wasn't it? We were on set and we were getting texts, and it's like, wait, has he been traded? Like, should we talk about this? And we thought for a while there, done deal, going to Denver based on some reports. And then the Packers come out and say absolutely not. So I have a feeling this will be an ongoing saga. Curious to see where it goes. But whenever I see stuff like this, just reminds me, I'm so glad we have our guy.
Absolutely. We could. But this first round last night, even though the Chiefs didn't pick, getting the Orlando Brown trade done and giving up the 31 pick to the Baltimore Ravens, it was still historic nonetheless.
It sure was. I'm a nerd. Everyone knows this, so I have my list of nerdy stats here. But it was a unique draft for a lot of reasons. First of all, 18 offensive players were selected, fourth most in the first round in the common draft era. So not a lot of defensive players, a lot of offensive guys. 7 offensive players selected to begin the night. That's the most since 1967. So no defensive players early on. It was quarterbacks, wide receivers, really no defensive players at all until the 8th overall pick. In Alabama, they were like a quarter of the draft. It was crazy. They're the first school in the common draft era to have a quarterback, running back, and 2 wide receivers selected in the first round of a draft. And with 6 total players taken last night, Alabama joined the 2004 Miami Hurricanes as the only schools to have 6 players drafted in the first round of a draft. Incredible stuff, historic draft, and now we get to pick here tonight. Yeah, we're going to join, again, Clark Hunt in just a few minutes here, but quickly, you mentioned Alabama. One of those Alabama players, Patrick Surtain, whose dad ended his career with the Kansas City Chiefs, a great career with the Miami Dolphins, was selected as the 9th pick for the Denver Broncos. Let's jump in quickly into the AFC West here, and then to see what the Chargers take an offensive lineman, Rashawn Slater, and then also the Raiders taking an offensive lineman in Leatherwood. Yeah, it was interesting to follow. First of all, the Broncos, we were wondering, does Justin Fields go there? And that's where the whole Rodgers thing was kind of complicating it. It's like, what are they going to do? But they go Patrick Surtain the second. He's a great player. We know that. A corner for the Crimson Tide, unanimous first-team All-American, SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 2020. It was interesting because they have Kyle Fuller and Ronald Darby there at corner already, but Vic Fangio, defensive mind, and you have to face Patrick Mahomes twice a year, so it makes sense going to get Patrick Surtain the second. Then Rashawn Slater to the Chargers, probably the number 2 tackle on the board. Solid player, one of your Northwestern Wildcats. You know how good he is. And we'll see if he's a left tackle or a right tackle at the pro level, but a solid player. The real thing with the Chargers was who they didn't get, because we were watching that board and we were worried about one guy from Penn State, Micah Parsons, a stud at linebacker. Fortunate he did not go to the Chargers or the Broncos for that matter. But then the Raiders, Alex Leatherwood, he was the Outland Trophy Award winner in 2020, awarded to the top interior lineman in all of college football. A bit of a surprise based on how the board was falling, based on mock draft and things like that, but he's a solid player. Curious to see what they do with him. We'll still see Micah Parsons. He's going to the Dallas Cowboys, and we get to play the Cowboys this year. A quick poll here before we bring in Clark. And last night we had thousands that jumped into these polls, but our first poll of the evening is which AFC West team surprised you the most last night in round one? So we'll be interested to see. I think I know where this is going. I think so too.
but I know where we're going now, and is with the chairman and CEO of the Kansas City Chiefs to join us tonight on this draft watch party brought to you by GEHA. Clark Hunt, the chairman and CEO of the Kansas City Chiefs. Matt, you and I love drafts. Clark was born into the draft. I mean, this has been a part of him. Welcome to draft night, and just your thoughts overall on the offseason up to this point that set the Chiefs board to get ready for tonight.
Well, guys, it's great to join you on your virtual studio, and this is an exciting time of the year, as you guys just highlighted. There's nothing like the draft when you know it's here. The football season's just around the corner, and we've had a great offseason to this point. And the good news is we get to pick tonight, and we'll get to add a couple more players to the stable of new players that Brett Veach has brought in to help the 2021 Chiefs.
Now, Clark, the beauty of this draft and in every draft is the Chiefs are picking late in every round because they're a competitive, a great team. I remember about a decade ago, you were on record talking about how you wanted the culture here to be one of a team that wins every single year, not one that just goes to the playoffs a couple times, going to the playoffs every single year, competing for championships. Now that you can reflect a bit on the last 10 years, the Andy Reid era, what he's been able to do here, what's it mean to you that culture has arrived? It's here.
Yeah, well, we've been blessed to establish a really strong foundation. And you mentioned Andy, and I would put Brett in there and Mark Donovan as well, just a great group of leaders that we've brought in. That's the people that have really helped us lay that foundation and become a consistent winner. But I tell you what, you can never rest on your laurels in the National Football League because there are 31 other teams out there who are trying to get better every year, trying to knock you off the top. And I know our guys are focused on not just equaling what they did last year, the year before, but actually getting better than we have been. Because if you're not getting better in the National Football League, then you're probably getting worse.
I've kind of sensed from our division opponents, they don't like us winning the division every year, winning 5 straight years. But that I'm going to follow up here, Clark, if I might, because the culture that's been developed here, it seems to be centered around trust. You mentioned Mark Donovan and Coach Reid and Brett Veach. But the trust that permeates not just horizontally but vertically, and what that means for a night like tonight to have a successful draft.
Yeah, well, trust is a really important part of any winning culture, and we definitely have that. You mentioned, Brett and Andy and Mark and the trust that they have for each other, and that's certainly true. But I also know it extends all the way down to the players. We've seen over the last couple of years how the offense trusts the defense trusts the offense. I'd put the special teams in there, and that's really helped, I think, the team play to its best ability. But I know the players also really trust our front office. They know that Brett Veach and his team and Andy and his coaching staff have their best interests at heart. And on nights like tonight, when we have a chance to get better, they know that Brett's going to do his best to make the Chiefs champions again by adding great players to the roster through the draft.
It's a nice segue to my next question because I want to ask you about Brett and how he's made this team better. You mentioned that you have to be proactive in trying to get better every single year, and Chiefs certainly did that, going out and getting Orlando Brown Jr. What was your reaction to that news, and what does it say about Brett he was able to pull that off?
Yeah, well, I think proactive is a great word to describe Brett. In fact, it's probably his middle name. Brett's done such a great job, over the last 4 years, and even going back, 4 or 5 years before that. Since his time of joining the Chiefs, he played an important role in the trade that brought Patrick Mahomes here, which certainly was a great proactive move and one that's really set us up for success going forward. But Brett's not one to sit. He likes to move, is always looking for a way to make the team better. The one hole that we really had approaching the draft was left tackle. Brett had done a great job of evaluating the board, and he was concerned that there might not be a left tackle who was a plug-and-play option available for us when we picked at 31, and that really led to the Orlando Brown trade. And it was actually a situation where Brett had to be patient for a little while because he knew that Baltimore did not want to trade Orlando to Kansas City. We're one of their big rivals. And so he laid in the weeds, if you will, for a bit, and then really at the right time sort of stepped forward and put our best offer on the table. And at the end of the day, it was good enough to get the deal done. And the Kansas City Chiefs are a whole lot better because of it.
I love it. You mentioned, we talked about culture of winning. It's been consistent now and one of the leaders in the National Football League. But if there's one thing that's certain in the NFL, it changes. We saw the adjusted salary cap. What about having the ability to win consistently in this league, Clark, to have the ability to adjust and to be flexible? And how much have you seen that come into play in the last several years?
Yeah, well, I think the last 2 years, really for everybody, it doesn't matter what business you're in, you've had to adapt. This has been a very challenging period, very challenging for a lot of businesses. The sports business certainly was on the leading edge of really feeling the brunt of the pandemic. I think the folks at the league office, the National Football League, did a great job of helping us navigate through last year. But really, all the teams had to adapt, and that was certainly true for the Kansas City Chiefs. We were, coming up on a time period where we had a number of players that we wanted to extend on long-term contracts. This goes back to last summer, and that included Patrick. And, we had to find a way to do it with the uncertainties that the pandemic really presented to the franchise. We really didn't know what the cap was going to do, and it ultimately did go down. And Brett and his team have really done a magnificent job of working our roster and making adjustments where they've needed to give us the cap flexibility to add players like Orlando Brown so that we can be better in 21 than we were last year.
And Clark, final question here. We touched on this at the beginning, but you've been experiencing the draft literally since you were born. It's been a part of your life, your entire life. Just how exciting is this weekend as a whole? How has it changed over the years in your mind, and particularly seeing your vision executed here over the last several years in Kansas City?
Well, the draft for me is really the kickoff to every football year. I know we get free agency, 5 or 6 weeks before the draft, but really, I think for the fans, and it's true for me too, as part of the leadership of the Chiefs, it really signifies the beginning of the new football season, and it's time for a little bit of a rebirth, right? We had a great season last year. We didn't like how it ended, and now we're to the draft, which tells us the 2021 season is right around the corner, and I'm just so excited. I know it's a very exciting thing for our fans. One of the ways it's really changed, and you guys are sitting in the venue where we usually have our draft party, is we've been able to include our fans in the draft experience. And that's going to be true tomorrow. We're going to have a big crowd out on the field at Arrowhead to help us celebrate draft weekend. We're going to announce the new Chiefs Hall of Famer. So it's a big weekend all the way around, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming season.
Speaking of exciting, how's exciting going to be? It's going to be here in 2 years. And what we're seeing tonight in Cleveland will be here soon.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely unbelievable. I was with the governor of Missouri yesterday, and we were talking about just how exciting the draft is in general. But I tell you what, that's going to be the best one yet. And Kansas City is going to put its best foot forward, and it's going to be an unbelievable party. Absolutely.
Clark, thanks for everything. We're going to keep rolling here. Looking forward to 2021 and to tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Clark Hunt, Chairman and CEO of the Kansas City Chiefs, as our draft watch party continues, brought to you by GEHA. I think it's kind of got lost. People think, well, wait a minute, we're going to host this in 2 years. And how cool is that going to be? Of course, in the Chiefs' kingdom. Okay, tonight, the Chiefs get to pick, and we're all excited about it. Right now, if it stands, the board stands as it is, and the Chiefs don't move, they'll have the 58 and the 63rd pick. So let's look a little bit. It could be. And before we do that, let's ask our second poll question of the night, and that would be, where do you want the Chiefs to go with their second-round pick? Here's the categories. You can choose wide receiver, defensive line, offensive line, or defensive back. Those are your four chances in our second poll question. Again, last night, a lot of you you participated in our poll. We hope you can do that tonight. But let's go to offense here a little bit and see. We talked last night about tight end and the importance of tight end in Andy Reid's offense. That and finding Travis Kelce some help. He has been a war horse. We just talked to Tom Melvin a little bit ago off air about the tight end position. But let's revisit a guy like Tommy Tremble of Notre Dame. And he could be a guy the Chiefs would take either at 58 or 63.
You think Brett Veach is watching those polls?
Yeah, he is. Absolutely. It's what he's doing right now. I know he's glancing at his board, but then he's just looking around the corner. How's the poll going, guys?
Yeah, got to do what the fans want, right?
Sure.
But yeah, let's talk about Tommy Tremble here. Tremendous blocker. That's the thing that jumps out on the film about him. Super, super tough player. Underutilized as a receiver at Notre Dame. He was more of just a blocking tight end, and he was a really good one. But he's one of those guys that at the next level, you can see that he could be a better receiver. The tools are there. He just really didn't unlock all of them at Notre Dame. The experts say that he could be a better pro than he was a college player. And that's saying a lot because he was a really strong college player. So Tommy Tremble's exciting. Blocker, could grow into more of a receiver. Intriguing player to watch for sure.
If you're a Chiefs fan, you've learned this in 8 years under Andy Reid. You've got to think outside the box. And many times we pigeonhole players. But I wonder if Tremble now, because Anthony Sherman recently retired, and Anthony Sherman would do the little things. So many big plays started with an Anthony Sherman block, either in scrimmage downs or special teams. Could Tremble be like an H-back type and even be a fullback?
Well, how about the run to immortality, right?
That's it.
Set free by Anthony Sherman.
Yep.
But absolutely. He played some fullback in South Bend for Notre Dame. So he's done this before. He's played some H-back. He could fill that role perfectly. He could be that four-core guy. And what's exciting about him is he wouldn't just be that. He could also develop into more of a receiving threat as well, as I was mentioning. So he could be that H-back for you. He could be a receiver. He could be that blocker. He could be tough. He really represents a total package at tight end. He's raw. He's not there yet in a lot of areas, but with a team like the Chiefs where you don't need to slot a guy in and be your starting tight end on day one because you have the greatest tight end of all time in Travis Kelce, he's an interesting player for sure.
Another tight end worth noting because he's going to be maybe on the board there when the Chiefs pick twice in a couple of picks would be a guy named Brevin Jordan at Miami of Florida. Your thoughts on Brevin Jordan and how explosive he could be?
Well, explosive is the key word with him because he has big-time speed. He's the total opposite of Tommy Tremble, where Brevin Jordan isn't quite a blocker at this point in his career. Could grow into that, but big-time receiving threat. Crossing patterns, tight end screens to get him in space. He's a yard after catch monster. I mean, nightmare in the open field trying to tackle that guy. Big-time athlete and a mismatch against linebackers. Brevin Jordan and Andy Reid's offense could be a lot of fun.
Okay, we're going to get to more of these offensive players, but I think Clyde's with us now. We're ready to go.
Let's do it.
So let's bring him in now. He was the first-round pick last year. You know him now as CEH in the Chiefs Kingdom. Clyde Edwards-Helaire joins us on our Draft Watch Party brought to you by GEHA. And Clyde, great to have you with us tonight. Can't wait to see you. Whenever we get the rules lifted, we can see you in person again. But it's been a year. Does it seem like a year or a day or a month? What a crazy first year in the NFL for you. But does it feel like a year since you were picked?
No, it seems a little quicker than a year. Feels like 6 months, I would say. But yeah, the year mark came pretty quick. So the draft kind of caught me by surprise.
It caught all of us by surprise. It's been kind of a crazy year for everyone. It's flown by in some ways and dragged in other ways. But, Clyde, I want to ask you not necessarily about what you were feeling at the draft last year, but beforehand and how that relates to how you feel now. Because in March and February of last year, you're going to the Combine, you're dealing with pro days, you're trying to figure out where am I going to be playing in a few months. Now what you can do is you know where you are. You're a Kansas City Chief. You know the playbook. You have a full season under your belt. How much nicer is it and easier is it to prepare for a football season when you have all those things figured out?
Much nicer. Much nicer. Just that those 3 to 4 months is just so hectic, man. It's no sleep, a lot of training, just a lot, just a lot going on. So now, I'm starting to, settle more in Kansas City. Things are starting to open up, starting to, just move around a little bit more freely. So, now just being able to enjoy the city and enjoy everything around it, now it's even better that, I'm already a Chief and being able to just go into meetings and pretty much know the playbook is also a perk. So right now I'm just blessed to have this opportunity.
Yeah, you guys had to be sequestered. I mean, for months. It was crazy. But I want to ask you, football question here, Clyde. What did you learn about being in this offense for your new year now, going into your second year, and being around Andy Reid and the nuances to make you even a better player in the second year in this offense?
The main thing is communication. And that's what our offense thrives on, being able to communicate. You know, it's those things as offensive schemes. You know, you can only do so much with 11 people and you know, move, you know, some people to the left, some people to the right, and have so many schemes. But being able to communicate is what sets our offense apart, and that's what I feel sets us apart. So you know, learning the language, learning the way Coach Reid speaks, learning the way Coach EB speaks, and how we communicate. It's pretty much everything we thrive off of, and that's how our offense runs. So, you know, with anything, you know, you hear it growing up, but communication is key.
And Clyde, you're the workhorse of this offense out of the backfield, but you're also part of a larger whole in that running back room that added Jerick McKinnon literally 20 minutes ago. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the potential for this running back room with guys like yourself, McKinnon, and also your boy, Darrell Williams, him coming back to the Chiefs this year. You knew him at LSU, obviously, and now he's been with the Chiefs for several years. What's the potential of that room?
The thing about the room is we can go any direction we feel. You know, everybody can catch out of the backfield. Everybody can run in between the tackles. You know, it's really like, you know, finding who has the niche at that time, and you know, who has the hot hand, and that's what, you know, being a running back is all about. You know, once you see a running back, you know, get in the groove, everybody's kind of like, oh man, keep feeding him, and that's just how we thrive. So. But the thing about having four talented guys is we can be in at any time, at any point in the game, and still be effective and do our job the way it needs to be done.
Speaking of groove, why am I thinking of the Houston game, the Buffalo game, and CEH getting in a groove?
I'm kidding.
So we didn't get to pick last night. We picked you a year ago with that 32nd pick. But a couple of your old teammates, well, we played the Bengals this year, and so your guy Jamar Chase gets picked to join up with Joe Burrow, and we get to play him this year. What was going through your mind when you saw that selection and those two guys getting teamed up again in Cincinnati, and knowing that we'll play the Bengals this year?
Well, you know, initially, I mean, I'm in a group message with Joe and a couple guys.
That's shocking.
From LSU, so you know, I just you know, threw a little text in, probably I think like pick 3, and I was just like, y'all still going after Jamar, you know, just with some emoji eyes, and he was like, you know, if everything goes right, yep, you know, we still gonna grab him. So you know, we kind of had some jokes about that, just you know, all these weeks coming up, but you know, from the most part, just initially just excited for Jamar, and just, you know, just the opting out thing last year, just, you know, I already know it was a lot, especially to be in college and make that decision and still be able to do the things you needed to do in order to go to your pro day and test the way you test, and still be at the top of your game a year later from actually putting on pads. So, you know, kudos to him for that. So, you know, initially, you know, overwhelmingly, you know, excited, and then my next thought was, all right, who jersey, you know, and you know, just third being, I would have the opportunity to watch him. You know, I wouldn't be playing them because I don't play defense. So, you know, just the perk of playing, you know, the same side of the ball, I'll be able to you know, to watch them play. But hopefully, you know, they don't do too much. You know, so
well, we were thinking about you when the Bengals made that pick, because we have some B-roll of Jamar Chase for our show yesterday, and it was a Jamar Chase touchdown from Burrow a couple years ago, and he's celebrating in the end zone. Then you come out of nowhere, you jump on his back, you're celebrating with him, and I was like, I bet Clyde's pretty happy about that pick. Now, last question here for you, Clyde. You were obviously a huge part of this team's success last year. Didn't end the way we all wanted it to. Just where's your hunger level at to get back on the field next season and go win the Lombardi Trophy again?
It's you know, I called my mom after that game, because I rarely cry about anything, I remember Daryl and Tyron coming to me, and I mean, I was boo-hooing. And I mean, if I could have padded up the next day, even the same night, to go back out and play again and do all 4 quarters again, I would. So, you know, if you can imagine the fire I had that night, it's only been growing. And it's, you know, it seemed like it's getting further and further away, because I keep thinking about, you know, how many months I have until I can actually put pads on and do the whole 9 yards. But I'm absolutely itching to play. You know, just putting that helmet on, putting those pads on, it puts me in a different mindset. Just being off all the time is a little different for me. So you know, this is I'm ready to play. Like I can keep rambling about it. I can keep going. So you know, that's my calling, man. My calling is football. So I can't wait to put the pads on.
Keep that pilot light lit, brother. We know you're going to work like crazy to get ready for this season. It's going to be awesome to see you again. Let's just ready to do this, man. Let's get it done.
Yes, sir. Let's make it happen, man. I'll talk to y'all later. I'll see y'all soon. Go Chiefs.
Thanks, man. CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, last year's #1 pick in the 2020 National Football League draft, and could have another teammate go off the board tonight. You know,
we'll see.
We'll see. A couple more teammates, actually. Let's go back and look. Let's third poll question of the night, because Clyde was a first-round pick, but tonight, of course, with 2 picks in the second round, our second poll question is, what do you want to see? What position in the second round? Let's go a little history here. Matt and I have been dealing with a lot of history over the past 5 weeks, and hopefully you've been able to follow all those episodes that we've had in dealing with draft history of the Kansas City Chiefs. But who's your favorite second-round pick of all time in Chiefs history? Is it Willie Lanier, Christian Okoye, Chris Jones? Remember, the Chiefs traded down and got Chris Jones, or Ed Podolak, the hero in the early 70s and one of the best all-purpose players in the history of the National Football League. So there you go. We had a great, again, a lot of folks in the poll last night. But let's jump back into looking at what could be possibilities in the second round. And we did not get to the wide receiver position. Let's do that, and we're going to start looking at some defensive guys.
Sure. And first of all, Chris Jones is winning that poll by a bunch. Understandably so. He's
shocking.
One of the best defensive tackles in all of football. But that's the beauty of our podcast that we did, the Fantasy Draft podcast that you just plugged, because I didn't really even know about some guys like Ed Podolak back in the day. I know who Willie Lanier is, obviously, but didn't know all of his stats and numbers. So go watch the podcast. Some good second-round picks in Chiefs history.
Willie Lanier is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
He sure is. He sure is.
Nothing against Stone Cold. But
Stone Cold could be in the Hall of Fame one day.
He will be.
I have a feeling he will be. But wide receiver, one option to keep an eye on, a hot option lately, De'Ami Brown from North Carolina. Deep threat at UNC, really exciting player for them. Averaged 20 yards per catch in each of the last 2 years. 8 touchdowns of 40 or more yards in his career. Could be a deep threat on day one. And when you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback with the biggest arm in the National Football League, that would play.
Yeah, let's pivot here now and look at some defensive players. We didn't have a time here. We looked at some corners. We're going to get into the defensive side. But let's go to the edge rushers here. And a lot of people, if we polled everybody, I'm curious what that poll will be. Now, that's DL covers a lot of things. I mean, that's the Derek Notties of the world and the Frank Clarks of the world. But edge rusher, and let's talk about one of the dynamics of the second round, because you think the run on offensive tackle tonight in the second round could be an assimilation of what happened last night with the quarterback run, which shoved a lot of players from other positions down to lower picks in the first round.
Definitely. Keep an eye on this in the draft, because we keep hearing about what a deep class this is at offensive tackle, and it is, but it's a lot of offensive tackles that are like second round, third round offensive tackles, and a lot of them are going to go tonight, in my opinion. And when a few go, a lot will start going like dominoes. So names like Tevin Jenkins, who probably should have been a first rounder in a lot of people's minds, Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame, Dylan Radence from North Dakota State, Sam Cosmi from Texas, Walker Little from Stanford. These names are going to start going off the board. And the thing is, the Chiefs don't need to address that position anymore with the Orlando Brown trade. So this helps the Chiefs. It benefits them, because these other teams will be scrambling to grab these offensive tackles, and all that does is push talent down the board.
And there have been some losses at those outside edge positions to free agency. So let's look at, you mentioned Texas, so let's go to Joseph Asai, an edge guy that could be there at either 58 or 63 for the University of Texas.
Very interesting class of edge rushers here, because you have kind of two different kinds of edge rushers. There's guys like Carlos Basham Jr. from Wake Forest, who's a really big edge rusher. He could bounce inside, play some defensive tackle as well. Or guys like Joseph Asai, who's leaner. He's only 253 pounds, and he's super raw as well, still learning the position, but really, really athletic. And that's exciting if you're a defensive coordinator because all the possibilities you could do with these guys. Super productive at Texas, 7 sacks last season with 17 hurries. Great flexibility as well.
I want to ask you about that big playability from Joseph Asai. We saw Frank Clark. I mean, go back to the 2019 season. Those 4 straight stops against San Francisco in Super Bowl 54, a lot of that was fueled by Frank. Or the sack of Ryan Tannehill, which sealed the AFC Championship game that year. Big plays from the edge guys. When I look at Osai, what about his you look at the Oklahoma State game where he's up against Tevin Jenkins all game. Game's in overtime. He makes the play that gets the win for Texas.
And that's when you look at stats, you have to make sure you're also looking at the moment. What's going on in the moment when plays are made and numbers are racked up. And Joseph Asai qualifies. He's a big playmaker. And that's what you want from your edge rushers. Just like you mentioned with Frank Clark, it doesn't matter if a guy's getting a sack when a game's over or something like that. You want your edge rushers stepping up when the game is on the line, and that's what Joseph Asai does. He did that against Tevin Jenkins in that Oklahoma State game. The guy has a great motor. He's always going, and he's always on the field. He played 70 or more snaps in half of his games last year. You love that juice from him. He'd be a really exciting player to watch in this defensive scheme.
Let's go to another spot on the defensive side of the ball that could be there at 58 or 63, and it's also created a lot of discussion. That's inside linebacker. When you look at what the importance of that role has become, obviously the National Football League, and you see the productivity of an Anthony Hitchens. But in this draft, there are some guys that are worth discussing that will go off the board tonight.
There's 3 guys from Ohio State that are interesting, but we'll talk about one of them, in Baron Browning from Ohio State. Elite size and speed for the position, and Pro Football Focus put it this way: he's the way you'd put together a linebacker. So if you wanted to craft a linebacker out of clay, it'd be Baron Browning. They called him a wrecking ball as a tackler. Pretty good praise for a linebacker. He's just a beast coming downhill. And pair this guy with Willie Gay Jr., who we saw what he can do in limited action last year. How about that Falcons game? No missed tackles, 10 tackles for him. Didn't miss a single one.
It may have saved the game with that forced fumble.
He sure did. I mean, he really stepped up. If you can think about a guy like Baron Browning with Willie Gay Jr., 2 super athletic, powerful linebackers that don't miss tackles to grow with this defense, could make some serious sense there.
We have another one we're going to talk about later in the show that's got a local tie-in. We're also going to hear from head coach Andy Reid very shortly, so hang around for that. But in the case of Browning or these other inside backers, the way football has evolved, they must cover. We're seeing the angle routes, the running backs that run those angle routes or in the wheel routes. So the LB's got the cover. Not just the outside guys, but the inside guys.
Well, your days of thumper linebackers that can't cover is kind of going away. I mean, you have to be able to cover in today's NFL. Look at linebackers like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, a guy that could have been a first-round pick. He's early in the second round, I'm guessing. But he's like a slot corner playing linebacker, basically. It's really interesting stuff. And a guy like Browning, he's pretty good at coverage as well. He can do that hybrid role. One thing that he really improved this year was his play speed and his recognition of plays. And you think about Spag's defense here in Kansas City, he simplifies it for them to let their natural ability take over. And that's what this guy needs, I think. I think he's really growing in terms of his recognition, but he has tremendous natural ability. And in this kind of scheme, I think he'd flourish.
And let's look at the corner position now. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed last year in the 4th round, outstanding. You talk about being in the slot. He was great as a blitzer, great in press coverage. But let's look at some of these corners that could be available there for Steve Spagnuolo to join this defense. And one that comes to mind is Aaron Robinson, a player out of the University of Central Florida, which has been one of the winningest programs in FBS football now for the last several years. But you look at Robinson, and what do you see?
It's like DBU there at UCF, isn't it? With Tay Gowan also in this draft. But he's interesting because he has the measurables, the size, all the skills of an outside typical corner. But he played slot primarily at UCF, and that's super interesting because if you can take a guy of his caliber and put him in the slot, that just makes your defense all the more better. Tons of experience and press coverage at slot corner as well. Most slot corners don't have that kind of experience. So he's not just good in coverage, also very physical off the line.
And I want to ask you about press coverage because Steve Spagnuolo loves to play press coverage. You see Shavarius Ward and what he's been able to do. We mentioned Sneed. When you look at his press coverage stats, 323 snaps of slot press coverage the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's impressive. You don't see that very often. And think about what L'Jarius Sneed did as a blitzer for this Kansas City defense. He was ruthless. And when you can do a little bit of everything, it makes you so much better as a defender. So when you have a guy like Robinson who's super physical, he loves to tackle, never shies away from contact. That's for sure. He can press you up in coverage, cover smaller slot receivers, and he can also blitz, and he has the size to play the outside if he needs to. Versatility is the name of the game for the Chiefs defense because we never call them just corners or safeties anymore. At least we don't. They're DBs at this point with Steve Spagnuolo, and Aaron Robinson is a DB.
Another corner I want to look at, too, that could be there in the late second round tonight for the Kansas City Chiefs. And when you look at corners, I call them the fighter pilots of the National Football League. You have to be courageous. You got to be fearless. You obviously have to be skilled. But I look at Kelvin Joseph at Kentucky, and I think fearless.
Fearless for sure. I mean, long, super fluid athlete, super physical. And that's where you see that fearlessness. He's not afraid to get guys downhill. With corners, a lot of the time you wonder if they'll be finesse, if they don't want to really tackle people. They just want to make plays, but he does both. He makes plays and he's very physical. And when he made those plays, picked off 4 passes last year, including a pick-6 against Tennessee. Kelvin Joseph, more of an outside corner prospect, but you think about what the Broncos did with Patrick Surtain. They have their corners already figured out, but you can never have enough of those guys. A similar situation could make sense for the Chiefs.
And these two categories, in linebacker and corner, too, maybe one thing that's overlooked, again, think outside the box when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and why they've been so successful under Andy Reid, and that is special teams. Because the more athletic your special teams are, and really for 8 years, if you take a compilation of the stats, the Chiefs have been the best special teams unit in the league over that span. But the athleticism that you get at linebacker or corner, how much could that enhance your special teams right out of the gate day one and a guy like Joseph?
Well, it's huge. That's what you have to remember is when you draft a guy, but you don't necessarily have a need at that position, it doesn't mean that they're not going to help you on day one. They're going to help you on special teams, and that's critical. You have to have your athletes out there making plays on special teams because you can see games tilt a certain way because of what happens on kick return or punt return or on field goals or whatever it may be. And the thing is, you mentioned athleticism. Kelvin Joseph, according to PFF, said he could be a top 10 pick because of his athleticism. He just needs more seasoning. He's just raw right now. Unleash that athleticism on special teams, and some special things could happen.
And can make some plays. Mentioned the fearless part, an interception against Devontae Smith of Alabama, who was one of the darlings of the first round.
Absolutely. And we talked about L'Jarius Sneed once again. People said that he could have been, if you redraft the 2020 draft, CBS Sports did this, he'd be the 8th overall pick because of what he did this year. You can find these DBs in the later rounds, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, and they can really do some special things for you. Kelvin Joseph could be that guy.
We're hoping to connect with Mecole Hardman here very shortly, and then we're going to hear from head coach Andy Reid later in the show. And again tonight, stay with us because when the Chiefs pick, when the Chiefs are on the clock, again at 58, if they stay there, and at 63, you and I will be right here, and we're going to break down those picks as it goes. So it'll be exciting. And then stay with us throughout the evening because we'll also look at the 3rd round and then wrap things up tonight. So just hunker down and be with us. It'll be fun. But the spontaneity of as you get closer to those picks and the anticipation is very few things parallel that.
Well, we're going to find out who we're picking when you guys find out.
Yeah.
So it's going to be crazy. Mitch and I have been looking at draft guides, mock drafts, everything you can imagine for months. And my hope is that we take some guys that we know something about. That's always your hope when you do this kind of thing. But we're going to find out live with you guys, and it should be a blast. The beauty of this class is the hot zone of this draft is the 2nd round, early 3rd round. Brett Veach said it last night. The Chiefs have 2 picks, as we've stated, in that hot zone. They're going to get some really good players tonight.
Another poll question we would like to get your thoughts on and your opinion would be 3rd round picks. Now, the Chiefs don't have a 3rd round pick tonight as it stands. But this has been, if you go back and look at the stuff that you had done and I had done, and then we did our fantasy draft together, but when I did my piece on looking at draft history round by round, the 3rd round has been the gold medal round for the Kansas City Chiefs.
It's ridiculous. And with this poll question, there's guys on there that we wish could be on there, but they're not. I mean, there's so many 3rd rounders in Chiefs history that are just frankly incredible. Guys like Dustin Colquitt, I don't think he's on there. Greatest punter in franchise history, one of the greatest punters in NFL history. But if I had to pick, it's really tough between Jamal and Travis Kelce because Travis Kelce, greatest tight end of all time, but Jamal is the greatest running back in franchise history. It's tough. I think I'd go Trav.
Well, here we go. Here's your poll. What do you think? That's what Matt Stat thinks. 1, Kelce. Is that the best 3rd round pick of all time? I think I know how this is going to go too. Jamal Charles or Will Shields.
I mean, yeah.
And we're going to see Will Shields later tonight because he's making the pick for the Chiefs in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Greatest guard of all time.
Yeah, he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then Albert Lewis, another one there. Well, speaking of 2nd round picks, I remember how excited we were 2 years ago. Deuces are wild here. Because in the 2nd round, the Chiefs took the former high school quarterback from Elbert, Georgia, who has made some big plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. Mecole Hardman, the Jet, joins us now. Mecole, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Good. How y'all doing?
Good. It's great to talk to you again. Like both Matt and I are saying, can't wait till we see you guys at some point. But let's just talk about, I don't know what 2 years ago feels like. We asked Clyde earlier. He goes, a year ago felt like really 6 months ago. Has it really been 2 years since you were picked? And what was that night like for you?
Man, this crazy thing. I'm going to my third year now, and it definitely flies by for sure. And but that night was full of excitement, man, and joy. You know, just being able to, coming from college, putting all that hard work, and then finally get drafted to go to, really to, to accomplish one of your biggest goals, in life, and that's get to the league. So it's definitely full of excitement and joy, and, just anticipation.
Yeah, that time has flown by the last 2 seasons. You're going into your third year here, and we've really seen you continue to develop your game over the last 2 years. What's the next step for you entering year 3?
Consistent improvement, consistency on the field, just being the best player I can be, and executing on my number is called. I believe this year coming in, I have more opportunities to showcase my ability and show, the coaches and, Pat and, the rest of the world what I can do on the field at a consistent basis. So, it's a big year coming in. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to the challenge, and just ready to help out, my team the best way I can.
Mecole, I want to ask you, because it seems like you make one thing that's routine is the difficult plays that you're able to make. There's a couple that come to mind. Your 2-point reception last year in the Charger game was crazy. That and that play in the back of the end zone against New Orleans was about, 4 inches for you to make the play. What about your ability to make the difficult play and how much you work on that?
I think it's just more so just coming in clutch, man, and just knowing when a play needs to be made to make a play. So I think once you got that in your head, knowing it's a time they're gonna come that you're gonna need to make a play, and you that kind of mentality of being ready for whenever that time's come, instead of letting that time come to you. It's like more so like you've been ready for it. So I think I just mentally go into a game prepared to make a big play and just be ready for that play whenever it comes. Whenever that play goes or comes, I'm ready for it.
Mecole, that play against the Saints was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, do you ever go back and watch that and go like, yeah, I made that play?
I see it on TV a lot. They make the highlights stuff. I'm like, that's really a good catch, but even a better throw by Pat. I think Pat put it in the bread basket where only I can get it. And that's testament of how good he is on the back foot like that and rolling to his left at that. So, but yeah, I think it was a good throw and catch for sure.
Yeah, the toe drag swag on your end.
Ooh, toe drag.
Incredible stuff all around. But we know what you can do on the field. I want to ask you about not necessarily what you're doing between the white lines, what you're doing on the sideline and before the ball is snapped, and that's leadership. And now entering your third year, how are you trying to become more of a leader and be that guy for the younger guys coming in?
Just doing all the right things. We got a team that's, composed of great leaders already, and on the offense and the defensive side of the ball. And just, just to lead by example and do the right things, whether it being, practicing hard or, being on time and everything, or just doing the right thing or taking, constructive criticism, just the things that they can look at that you really can't, that you really can't coach. And I think just by doing that, you kind of lead in a good way, lead by example type thing. And I think that's kind of, attract to the younger guys. I'm still young myself, but, rookies coming in, second-year players, they see that, and they kind of like attract to it. And maybe that, attracts them to ask questions, especially questions they probably don't want to ask older guys, question they ask somebody around their age or, someone close to their age. I think that's kind of like how I set my role, is just to lead by example and, do all the right things necessary. And then when those questions come, be ready to answer them and, give them my advice or my experience on certain things that they ask.
As a follow-up to that, though, Mecole, one thing that I have noticed about this team in recent years is the ability to pick each other up. I mean, the whole kingdom was gasping for air against the Houston Texans in that divisional playoff game in 2019. I mentioned on the air, I said, it just takes one play to a spark. And it was your 58-yard kickoff return that I think people forget about that started everything in that great, crazy comeback against Houston. But last year, the team picked you up, too, in the playoffs, and Pat came right back to you. What about a winning team having that ability to pick each other up when one or many get down?
Oh man, I think it just show you how connected we is as a team. You know, I think no person is bigger than the team, and I think Coach Reid and the staff, EB and all those guys do a great job of putting guys in the right situation for them not to feel like they're bigger than the team itself. And I think with one guy, it's like in my case, was down or messed up, is like the team feels that and they feed off like making sure that guy is ready to go and not lacking confidence at all. And so I think it just shows like the team that we got and the teammates that we are, because we all play for one another and we all got one goal in mind. So it's like let's get right, get it together, and let's get going. And and Pat said something, you're gonna make a big play in this game, and we're gonna need you. And just hearing words like that, it kind of gets you back right and back on track and stuff like that. So
Mecole, you're the Jet. That's your nickname, but it's my understanding you were on a fighter jet earlier today.
Man, yes, I would. I got on the F-16 today with the Air Force Thunderbirds, and boy. Whew, I say it's probably the most memorable moment that happened ever in my life, man. It's something I'll never forget.
Did you eat anything before you got in the jet? And what happened to it if you did?
They gave you specific instructions of don't eat nothing greasy, heavy or spicy before that day. Just eat something light like granola bars or a cereal bar, just to keep something light on your stomach. And it definitely helped with the flight and be very hydrated. And so I kind of was hydrating like a week and a half out before today and everything. So I came in well hydrated. Had a light snack on my stomach, and it definitely helped for the ride.
I'm glad it all stayed down. We're getting ready. We're going to let you go tonight. Thanks so much for being with us. But Helaire still on the board. I mean, there's some Georgia hunkered down Tyson between the hedges dogs in there. You want to see a dog join you in the locker room?
Hey, I love having a dog in there with me for sure. But at the end of the day, I know Mitch gonna make the right choice. I just don't know which way he gonna go though. It's so crazy because he can go any other way. He can go O-line, he can go D-line. He can go defensive back. Like it's so many ways he can go, man. So I'm very interested, and I'm gonna be tuned in to see who we pick. And like you said, it's so much talent in this draft this year. So whoever we go with or what area we go with, we definitely gonna get a dog. Either it's a Georgia Bulldog or just a regular dog in general. So it's definitely gonna be exciting to see.
Okay, Jet. We'll let you continue to enjoy your jet ride, but thanks for being with us so much, man. Look forward to seeing you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Mecole Hardman, that's so cool. He got an F-16 ride. That's the best. And wow. And he kept it all down. That's good.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Wise move, though, to just eat like energy bars. We're going to hear from Coach Reid in just a couple of minutes, so you don't want to miss that, because he'll kind of lay things out in not only going into tonight, but what's happened over the past several weeks in getting this team ready to go for 2021. And nobody gets a team ready. That's been proven. Nobody gets a team ready in this league like Coach Reid does. We'll ask him about that and some other things. But while we wait for that, one of the things we wanted to do was look at some guys with some local flavor here. And really one of the interesting guys tonight, he's going to go off the board tonight and maybe to the Chiefs at 58 or 63, is inside. We talk about inside linebacker, but Jabril Cox is really one of the more interesting guys in this whole draft.
Yeah, he really is, and we like this guy a lot for a lot of reasons. But for me, one of the things I like most about him is you look at his path here. So he goes to North Dakota State, and he is a superstar. I mean, an All-American for 3 straight years. He's one of the best players in the FCS. But what did he do? He could have gone into the draft out of North Dakota State. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to challenge himself and go to LSU. Goes to the SEC and wants to see what kind of player he can be there. And he succeeded succeeded. And it really says a lot about a player, about a man doing that kind of thing and challenging yourself and seeing how you stack up against top competition. And we saw Mike Dana do that 2 years ago. He was a stud at Central Michigan. I mean, tons of pass rushing numbers. Transfers, though, to the University of Michigan against Big Ten competition, and his numbers went down, but he was saying it was such a great experience for me because I challenged myself, and that helped me get ready for the NFL. And I think that could be the case for Jabril Cox as well. Very exciting player.
Raytown South Cardinal. He played quarterback there. Can you imagine like the Raytown Blue Jays or Grandview Bulldogs going, dude, that's the quarterback? We're supposed to tackle him? He is a very interesting guy. But there's some others here that are from the local area. Nick Bolton is a guy at Mizzou. Now, he was a tackling machine at Mizzou, but I look for him to go off the board early in the second round.
Yeah, very instinctive linebacker at Mizzou. 11 pass breakups over the last 2 years. Todd McShay called him a Tasmanian devil. I mean, he's just always around the ball, always running around, energy giver. Most stops of any linebacker in the SEC the last 2 seasons. And you turn the tape on, and you see why this guy is so good. If you look at his pro day numbers, you look at his measurables, all you did was look at his stats in terms of his body and everything, you might be like, well, I don't really know if he's going to be a great linebacker in the NFL, but you turn the tape on, this guy is a football player. He's one of the reasons you can't just rely on things like pro day numbers and how tall you are and how big your hands are and your arm length, because this guy is an absolute stud. He has the desire to be a great player, and that's important.
You know what's interesting about him? The measurables are the knock on him, right? He's not a prototype inside backer. But I'm going to go old school here. I see a London Fletcher in him, the former Rams star, or a guy like Sam Mills, who was part of the expansion Panthers. But I could see him fitting into that role and being a longtime pro.
Yeah, it's the ability, do you want to be a great player? Do you love football? And he checks both of those boxes. He's an awesome, awesome player for Mizzou, and could make a lot of sense in this Chiefs defense. I know a lot of Mizzou fans would love that. We'll see how it plays out. But that's why you can't always just trust the measurables. You have to get in the mind of the kid. And this kid loves football. He wants to be great.
You want to have some fun now?
Let's do it.
Okay, so if you've been watching us over the last month or two, we've been throwing a lot at you, but one of the things we threw at you is, why do I like this guy so much? And that was just in the last couple of days. And one of my why do I like those guys so much is a Webb City Cardinal, one of the great high school programs in the Chiefs Kingdom. They've won 15 state titles in Missouri, just north of Joplin. But a guy named Zach Davidson could be a Chief someday. Who's the Zach Davidson guy?
So a 0-star recruit out of high school.
0 stars.
0 star.
Okay.
Hooks on with the Mules and just does a little bit of everything. I mean, he was a tight end for him. He was a long snapper. He was a punter. Did just about everything. Super athletic kid. And he has the makings of being like a folk hero, right? I mean, it reminds me of Sean McGrath from several years ago. Not in terms of how he plays, but just how the fans loved him. And that's what this guy is kind of like. He's the kind of player that you certainly can't bring in day one and plug him in and he's going to be a star. But you see what you have with his athleticism. He can do a little bit of everything. You never know.
Never know. And he's working on long snapping, too. Not only is he a great punter, he's an All-American player at the University of Central Missouri for the Mules. But it's not just a novelty pick.
No.
I mean, there's people that raising eyebrows even in this building. All right, we had a chance to talk to the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, to get things set up for these 2 picks tonight. Let's check in now with Coach. All right, it is time now to take this draft day party up a notch. Because how many Hall of Fame coaches you talked to today?
None yet.
None yet till now.
Exactly.
Let's bring in now the most successful coach in Kansas City Chiefs history, the most incredible 8-year run, 3-year run. With us now, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Coach Andy Reid. Coach, it's great to have you with us tonight. And I just want to ask you, one of Matt and I's favorite clips we just watched was of Super Bowl 54, Patrick throws his first postseason interception. You go, man, let's keep firing. Just keep firing. How much is the message from you to all of us is let's reboot, let's go, and let's just keep firing?
Yeah, listen, you hate to have one game take away from such a phenomenal season as last year. The great thing about the National Football League is every year is different. We're fortunate to have Brett Veach with us, and we've seen what he's done as far as resupplying these great players to this organization and giving all of us an opportunity to put together another good season. It'll be different than the last one. And obviously we hope we finish it off even better than we did the last one. So, that my message to the guys is, hey, listen, let's not blame anybody for these guys coming back. Let's not blame anybody other than ourselves. Let's take that responsibility upon ourselves. We got beat, and we all had a part of it, head coach included right here. So we all had a part of this thing. So we go back and we get ourselves better, and let's go. And that thing, like a bad play, that's in the back mirror, man. It's gone. Can't do anything about it. We're moving forward, and with this draft right here upon us, what a great opportunity to start it.
Now, Coach, you mentioned what Brett's done in free agency and through trades of resupplying this roster, getting you ready for 2021. I want to ask you specifically about the trenches. You always talk about how football is won in the trenches, and I want to ask you about both sides because Brett's done some things on both sides of the offensive and defensive lines with guys like Joe Tooney, Orlando Brown Jr., then defensively Jaron Reed. How excited are you about those moves in particular?
Yeah, Austin Blythe mixed in there too.
Sure.
And then we get our doctor back and the Frenchman. So it's great. This influx of players. Niang is back in the house here. So one of our big draft picks from last year. So we've got this great nucleus of big fellas, and Brett's done a nice job of adding to it. So even if you don't make the first team, you're going to be a guy that's had experience in the National Football League. And whoever those starting five are, the guys in the back of it are going to be guys that have played, and that's valuable. It's very valuable to this organization. So, but you got to have the bigs. You find that out the further you go in the playoffs. We always talk about it, but the further you go in those playoffs, you better have the bigs in place. And so this has been a good thing.
Coach, this is an exciting night. I mean, we're going to get two picks sitting here at 58 and 63 in this second round. And you've done such an awesome job of acclimating guys quickly. For the guys that you get tonight, what's the process then, starting right away, of getting these guys up to speed so that they can potentially have an impact in week one of the 2021 season?
Yeah, well, we take we take pride in being good teachers as coaches, and really that's what we are. So that's our challenge for whoever is new to this football team, whether you're a free agent or a draft pick. We're here to teach you and try to really exploit your strengths, and then we'll work on those things that you're not so good at. We'll get you caught up in those areas, and most of all, learn the offense, defense, and our special team. So that's exciting. That's exciting for all of us.
Coach, you've mentioned before that sometimes Brett can wear you out on some prospects in a good way, of course, getting your ear about some guys. Not asking for any state secrets, not asking for any names, but are there some guys that Brett's really worn you out about throughout this offseason process and gotten you excited for tonight?
Well, listen, I get to see the whole process. So I've seen them in lockdown here for the last 2 weeks with all the scouts and personnel department, and they get themselves in this big room and social distance, but they get themselves in this big room and they don't come out. They get in there at 8 o'clock and they don't come out until 8 o'clock at night. And they just pound out every draft pick. And if the guy's lucky enough to make the board, then they're going to get pounded out another time. And so, and another time. And until Brett's got that grasp of every individual that's up on that board and how they can fit in to help us out. And so I love that. I mean, I love that part of it. I don't sit in on all those meetings, but I watch them go in there and I know what they're doing. And so when Brett picks somebody, as coaches, we have full confidence that this guy has been looked over and researched as much as anybody can, and we know will be a great fit in our organization, and obviously the football team, along with the community. So Brett takes all that into consideration.
Just awesome to hear that. Love it. I want to ask you, you've been a head coach in this league since 1999 and assistant since the early 90s. You've had first-round picks that have become stars, seventh-round picks. You've had undrafted free agents. What do you tell the guys that are drafted or that you recruit in here as an undrafted player that it doesn't matter where you're drafted, to tell them what is takes to be successful in this league.
Yeah, don't waste your time counting the numbers in line. So just when you're given an opportunity, be ready to take full advantage of that opportunity. But don't wait until you're actually at the line of scrimmage, in the defensive backfield, at the linebacker level, as a running back in the backfield, or the quarterback under center or in the shotgun. Don't wait at that moment to have gone, oh, no, I didn't spend enough time to be put in this situation to achieve. So spend the time to know what you're doing. Don't worry about who's around you, starters in front of you, people behind you. Don't worry about all that. Be ready, though, when your opportunity comes up to shine. And everybody's given an opportunity.
Now, building off that, Coach, we talked to Kels last night, and he explained the culture in this locker room is all about when young guys come in, it's the responsibility, it's a mandate of the older players to bring them in, to mentor them, to teach them how to be a chief, essentially. That should be how it is across all sports, but we know that's not the case. In your experience, how unique and special is this locker room in bringing along young players?
Yeah, every locker room is different, and for every team. And this is something that our guys have taken pride on since I've been here, to help out the younger guys. And so that's a good thing. Nobody's fighting against each other. We're all fighting for that goal of being the best we possibly can. Brett Veach is creating competition. We don't hide that. I tell our team every time this offseason that I've had a chance to talk to our football team, and it's like we're talking right here. We're not together other than on the Zoom calls. So, but I tell them, Brett Veach is continuing to help build this team by competition, and you have to love it. Don't shy away from it, man. Attack it, cherish it, and feel a part of it, because it's going to make you better than you are now. And so that I think that's important. That's an important quality to have, and the guys carry that into the locker room. So when the coaches aren't around, our veteran players take great pride in that. They're not threatened by competition. And so they want to be challenged, and they want to even take it up a notch. Kelsey, who's been doing this for 9 years, and so he wants to even be greater than he is now. And competition can do that for you.
One of the things I miss, Coach, is when we just get a chance to talk ball. We love ball at all levels. So I'm intrigued when I look at these drafts. I see what high school football is, what junior college, small schools, big schools. What is the high school and college game bringing to you? When I see things like tight ends like Kelsey, who can be a wide receiver, or hybrid safety corners, how about acclimating what you're getting from the colleges into the pro game?
Yeah, this is fun to watch, because the National Football League put a big push on cleaning the game up a little bit, making it more friendly for the youth leagues, incorporating mothers into the project of making the game better. And so the Chiefs have been a big part of that, doing local clinics. Over the years since I've been here, that's taken place, and it's through the National Football League's efforts there. So, and then what you end up with are great coaches at the youth leagues. You end up with even better coaches at the high school level, and even better coaches at the college level. It's making everybody better, thus making our game better. And then crazy how it's worked, but it's also brought this pass game that everybody's doing, and the option game, it's brought it together. So these kids are coming in now, and they're used to throwing the football and defending the throw game. So now all of a sudden this game is taken off, and you've got solid play in the run game and the pass game, and it's just made for a healthier game all the way around. It's been fun to be a part of that.
Awesome.
And Coach, one of the many reasons you've been so successful throughout your career, and this is our final question here, is just that you have your guys attacking every single day in the off season, in the spring and the summer, getting them ready for training camp. So they're not just showing up to training camp, not having done any football activities or thought about football in that time. They're ready to go the first day of camp, and they're ready to go the first day of the season. So with that in mind, what do the next 45 days or so look like for you in this roster?
Yeah, so right now we're in our phase one. So the guys aren't here. They can come in and lift and do their thing, but we're doing everything virtually. as far as meetings go. And then they're out there, they're lifting on their own, or the ones that are in town here come in and get their lift in. And I have full trust that our guys are working hard. I mean, we have an opportunity to talk to them, so they shoot us straight and let us know how they're doing. In a couple weeks here, we'll be in phase 2. Phase 2 will be done virtually for meetings, but we'll have the guys in-house here where you can do offense and defense, but not offense versus defense. So you can start putting in new plays and working on those versus air. And then that lasts for a week, 4 practices. And then you're into phase 3. And then phase 3 is where you can do offense versus defense. You can put a helmet on so nobody bangs up their noses or anything there. So, and then you get to compete a little bit. Nothing like training camp, but it's all steps getting us ready for training camp. And then the guys, the coaches will take some time off after phase 3. And then the players ramp it up. They take it, now they hit the conditioning even harder for that last month before training camp starts to get themselves in shape for that. And then we roll and everything's going. Within that whole phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, we'll have a rookie mini camp here in a couple weeks where we'll have all the rookies in. We'll have approximately 30 to 35 players here, and we'll be able to work whatever drills and fundamentals we can with them and introduce them to the offense, defense, and special teams part of it. And then we'll also have a mandatory mini camp at the end of the phase 3 where all the veteran players will obviously be here. Everything up to that point, phase 1 and phase 2, phase 3, that's all voluntary. So normally guys show up and we very seldom have people miss. So we've been very lucky that way. So, I'd imagine that would continue as we hit phase 2 and phase 3.
I learned this 8.5 years ago. There's no wasted days with this coach. Coach, thanks for being with us. Let's just keep firing.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Head coach Andy Reid, as we get ready now for the second round of the draft. Just great to talk with Coach Reid. And it's just so awesome that he's our head coach, a Pro Football Hall of Fame head coach who's not slowing down at all, man. He's rolling.
And he's the leader of this whole thing, but you see it with the players and you see it with him. They are so excited just to get going. All they want to do is get back on the field and get week 1 going. And like Clark Hunt said, it really starts tonight.
Yep, and let's show you not only tonight, but what the Chiefs have in front of them, including tomorrow. The Chiefs, again, will pick twice in the second round tonight, if it stays there, at the 58 and the 63rd pick. And then tomorrow, people pick in the 4th round. There's 2 in the 5th and the 6th. Even with that trade with Baltimore, there's still plenty of picks tomorrow. That'll be part of our draft fest in front of season ticket members at Arrowhead Stadium. But don't leave us tonight, because we're going to be right back with you, and won't be that long because, Matt, we're fired up about tonight, but people can just ride along right with us.
Yeah, we're going to find out who we're picking right with you all. And this is going to be so exciting because, once again, Brett Veach, who does this for a living and knows this more than we do, has said that the hot zone of this draft, the value and the talent in this draft, is between the second and the early part of the 3rd round. And the Chiefs have 2 picks, right smack dab in the middle of all of that. We're going to get some outstanding value picks tonight, some outstanding players tonight to help this team get back to the Super Bowl.
Here's the way it's going to work. When the 55th pick is on the clock, come join us. Come join us, like where you're at right here. However you're joining us, come back to us, because then we will come back on live once the 55th pick is on the board. So we'll see you in a little bit. Don't go far away. And let's get ready to do this. Kansas City, the best team in the National Football League, 3 AFC championship games, 2 AFC championships, 2 Super Bowls, and a Super Bowl championship, and getting ready to roll again in 2021. He's Matt McMullen. I'm Mitch Holthus. Just join us here in a little bit. Again, pick 55 comes up on the board. Come back and join us.